And good evening. It is Tuesday, May 22nd at 7 p.m. I'll call this meeting of Stow Board of Selectmen to order, and I will begin, as always, with public input. I want everyone rush at once. All right. Seeing as there's no public input, I'll proceed to Chairman's comments. Just have a few things. First of all, I want to congratulate my colleagues, Mr. Ryan and Mr. Hawks, on their stunning victories over blanks in the recent election.
Thank you.
Blanks will never
They were
rear his
upset.
ugly head again in this town.
Just kidding. The heavy money was on the blanks.
And also, I want to congratulate the organizers of Springfest. I wasn't able to attend, but I understand, as usual, a very successful event. Weather moderately conspired against everyone, but in particular, we want to thank the Springfest committee, the organizers, Sam Altieri, Sarah Salamone, Maura Highland, and Sherry Giusalme. And also, thanks to all the vendors, performers, volunteers, and everyone who attended. Springfest is definitely one of the things that makes this town very special and is a reminder of our small town roots. And on a more solemn note, I want the board to mark the passing of former Fire Chief Doug Treffery. Doug, a lifelong resident of Stow, first joined the fire department in 1963, and I believe became a permanent firefighter. No, he was appointed chief engineer of the department in 1973. He served as chief of the department for 20 years. And this was in the days when, this was before we had a professional staff running the town, when people who were dedicated to the town did more than one role. They sort of revolved around. And he not only was our fire chief for 20 years, he was a police officer, a special officer, and a full-time officer. He was the tree warden. He was on the insect pest control committee, and I know he served on the Conservation Commission for a very long time and made a very meaningful commitment there. People like this are difficult to lose, and I'd like the board to take a moment of silence and remember Doug Treffery. Thank you. And we'll go to our packet, and we do have a set of minutes, I believe, minutes from our very brief reorganizational meeting last week. Is that correct?
Yes. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Burke.
I move to accept the minutes of May 16th, 2018, admirably prepared by our former town clerk. Second.
Motion's been made.
Former board clerk, excuse me.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the minutes of May 16, 2018 as written. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that is unanimous. And has everyone had a chance to review the correspondence folder? Anything that we want to note for a future agenda?
Is anyone going or want to go to the emergency preparedness meeting in Auburn on May 30th, hosted by Eversource? Oh, just thought I'd mention it.
I think we'll try to drum up some support for that offline. And we'll go to our next item, which is a discussion and vote on the deed for the Kunelius property, which of course was voted at the recent annual town meeting. And I think we have Kathy Sparrow and Bob Wilbur here, and maybe Mike Kopczynski on this item. Hello.
Hopefully it won't take up a lot of your time, but Kathy Sparrow here on behalf of the Conservation Commission with Bob Wilbur for Stowe Conservation Trust and Mike Kopczynski from SMART. And following up on our promise to Marilyn Kunelius to close 20 days after town meeting, we've been scrambling to get everything done and be ready for that. So you have in your packet tonight draft deeds for both as you recall, we're breaking the parcel into two pieces, one piece being conveyed to the Conservation Commission, one piece being conveyed to SMART. So town council has prepared draft deeds. We are asking you to vote to accept those tonight on behalf of the town. SMART has already voted, the Conservation Commission is voting tonight, and then the closing is scheduled for the 29th, I believe. which is next week.
So all you need from us tonight is to sign.
We don't actually
Well,
need you to
actually, to
sign
accept the deed,
anything,
to
we need to
designate
vote
some-
you to accept, and then we're also asking, just in light of the short turnaround time, for you to delegate authority to either the chair or the town administrator to sign any documents needed for closing.
My suggestion would be the town administrator, if he's willing.
What's the pay? No, I'm good. I'd be happy to.
Our profound thanks.
Yeah, well, that's enough. That's more than enough.
Bring you some pep.
Any questions from members of the board? Anything, Mike, Bob, that you want to add?
No.
No? Well,
I'll just add, in your memo you had, in your packet, you had a memo from me explaining kind of steps that were happening this week and next, and so far, all the pieces are falling into place.
Thank you for doing
Shape.
that.
Mr. Selectman, I move that the Selectmen accept the deeds for the Kunelius property represented by the Conservation Commission, and further move that the Selectmen authorize the town administrator to execute any additional documents needed for closing on the property in the next 2 weeks.
Second.
motion is made and seconded to accept the deeds and to authorize the town administrator to sign any remaining documents that's required to be signed. By way of further discussion, I just want to take the opportunity on behalf of the board to congratulate all of you on really a terrific project. Something, I mentioned this at CPC, but the scope of it, tremendous. In a town where we already have so much protected land, to have something sail through like this, incredible. The partnership between conservation and affordable housing, a model for the future, I think we all hope. Great job, everyone. SCT's involvement, thank you so much. SMOT, big win. Thank you very much, all of you.
When the units are there. When the units are, the SHI is a win, but yes.
A lot of work ahead.
Yes.
There is, but it is a victory.
This speech hasn't been given before, so you're.
That's right, exactly,
you're down
right,
and, you know,
exactly. Thank you very
you're
much.
already ahead of the
I
curve.
appreciate, I second the sentiment, and, you know, Stow Conservation Trust for coming up to begin with, and really making it possible, you know, by investing your own funds in the project. I think you deserve an awful lot, and I think it's gonna be I think it's a great project. Thank you, guys.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to accept the deeds and designate the town administrator to sign remaining miscellaneous documents signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and that's unanimous. Great job, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all, thanks for your support.
We'll give them.
Thanks.
Mike, don't go anywhere.
Right, you got 8 days left, right?
So why don't we take up the affordable housing DHCD thing, since Mike is here.
Yep.
Jesse may be joining us, but if we don't have any questions and we're all set, then we can just send Jesse back to where he
I'll
was.
go up and tell them when we're done.
That's right.
That's it.
Mike, do you want to just introduce what this is? Jesse did send us a memo.
Right, I was hoping that you'd all read or had the opportunity to read most of what was there. It's just some, this is to update, there are some changes that happened since the last time you saw these things. And one of the ones that I'm excited about is that we actually have changed so that the middle income restrictions are in perpetuity as well. And so the first time we came to you because there was not really a precedent in the state for there being middle income deed restrictions, but now we are gonna extend those. We may be, it's possible that we're the first community doing this, but anyway, we've gotten good advice, both legal counsel and from DHCD, so we're those middle income ones, which we were concerned that it was gonna be like a windfall for the first folks and not really get extended. That's taken care of now because this agreement, the agreement for the middle income will be with the town, not with DHCD like the other ones are. So essentially by avoiding the DHCD, we can set our own precedent. So
And
that was good. I think that was a concern that we all had previously, and now that's gonna be addressed, so.
And the gist of these agreements seems to be setting up the mechanism by which the lots are sold to low or middle income individuals and kept as such.
Right, and that's.
Together with the deed restrictions.
Right.
Questions from my colleagues, Mr. Burke?
I can, yes, Mr. Chair. The deed restrictions of both types, will they be strong enough to survive foreclosures?
Yes, they are in perpetuity and they survive foreclosure.
Thank you.
Yeah, the new
So
code.
that's I mean, we essentially took the DHCD language for the low-income ones and mirrored it for the middle-income ones, but just raised the asset limits. So, and made instead of taking all the references to DHCD as the monitor, the town will be the monitor.
Mr. Ryan.
One of the things I noticed in there is that the town or SMOT has the ability to buy the units, should you so desire, if they can't find a low income,
Correct.
middle income buyer. Is that one of the types of things that you had thought about in the past for using some of the funds that you might have available?
Not for new units, that's not really been I think, and we don't actually anticipate that that's gonna be the issue. The problem usually is if there's a transfer.
Right, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
during,
Not
either a
not the
foreclosure
initial.
or transfer, if an eligible buyer, if somebody wants to sell, an eligible buyer can't be blocked. That's what we have those funds that have been put aside, CPC funds, the Affordability Safeguard Program,
Mhm.
for our ability to, that's where those funds would, that's the thing, it's kinda like a revolving fund, we probably talked about that in the past, but,
Mhm.
so we could buy a unit and then sell it to an eligible buyer, and then put those funds back into that same account. So that's the purpose of that fund, so it would be short-term purchase.
Right. And that would end up making it so really you could buy it out of foreclosure because you've got
Right.
first option on it regardless.
Right.
Which is a good thing.
Right, so that's what that whole safeguard program was about, was the backstop in case, so that we wouldn't lose a unit, because it's only 90 days, if like, for it's on foreclosure, it's only 90 days, like, if they can't find an eligible buyer, then they can go to the market, and we lose it, so
Yeah, well, at least what I read in there is even regardless of that, any new deed has to still contain the same rider for
But it does.
affordability.
yes, right, but,
So,
but,
yeah.
yeah, right, but what could happen is that somebody who's not eligible would be there, but it would still have to sell it at the eligible, when they sold it, it would have to be at with the same restriction on it.
So if they wanted to, they could pay 20% over market value, but when they go to sell it, they still gotta sell it at.
Right, and if an ineligible buyer, if an ineligible buyer were to buy it, we would lose it for that period off the SHI, if there's an ineligible buyer during that period.
Mike's handling it. We're in,
No,
you're fine. We just got to it very quickly and
Okay.
he's
yeah.
handling it.
Okay, great.
So it was.
You can continue to handle.
No, well, I wish you could rewind, so you can make sure that I said everything
But that's where you'd have the ability to step in
Right.
if it started to
with that program.
approach that
Right,
with
those,
the program.
with those funds, right?
Good.
So,
Anything else? Mr. Stedman, do you have anything you want to add?
You didn't know what I said.
Yeah. No, the town clerk and I were just talking, we were thinking that, given the shape that the regulatory agreements are in, there's a couple fill-in-the-blank spots on the DHCD version. I thought maybe, if anything, the motion could be to approve and maybe have the chair sign, at a later date, tomorrow or the next day, once we have everything set. But these are the documents, I just wanna, fill in the blanks, like I said.
Okay.
So,
So I would accept a motion to accept these agreements and authorize the chair to sign substantially similar agreements after typographical errors are corrected, or something along those lines.
make the motion, I do have one other question afterwards, but I move that the Board of Selectmen approve and execute a regulatory agreement for units priced at 80% of the area median income for the purpose of finalizing the Department of Housing and Community Development, DCHD, Local Action Unit, LAU, application for the Regency at Stow Active Adult Neighborhood, and
Second.
authorize the chairman to sign the documents after perfecting language.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the documents and authorize the chair to sign. Further discussion, Mr. Ryan, you indicated you had.
Yeah, one of the things was that there appeared to be two different versions, both with the same date that we got in our packets.
yep. So we're doing things a little different in Stowe, so we have the 80% the units priced at 80% of the area median income are the low-income units. They are the ones that will count on the Stow subsidized housing inventory. We also have units that are priced at 150% of the area median income. Those are middle-income units. They're really kind of unique to Stow. It's kind of like starter housing.
I said it
almost.
was, I said we were doing a,
Yep. And-
we're
and
the
so-
first, we're the first community that I know of that's
Yep.
doing this with the deed restriction, so.
And so this is really an agreement between the town and the developer, and DHCD is left out of that middle income one. So we basically use DHCD's model for consistency, but legally, it's just us and Toll that are in agreement on that.
Was that part of your motion?
I had forgotten the lower part, my apologies.
Withdraw the second for the purpose of,
And I move that the Board of Selectmen approve and execute the regulatory agreement for units priced at 150% of the area median income for the Regency at Stow Active Adult Neighborhood.
second.
Maureen, is that all clear enough, or would you like?
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay. A motion has been made and seconded to approve both agreements and authorize the chair to sign at a later date after perfecting amendments. Any further discussion?
One more question that I had. It looked like, my numbers may be off, but it looked like 3 units of one type, and so how many units will count towards the?
4.
Only 4. Now, is this a 40B, or is this under the
AAN,
inclusionary?
AAN,
The special permit, so the inclusionary zoning bylaw applied, yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Seeing and hearing no further discussion, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much for all your work on this.
He's done he's done a great job.
Yes, as have you.
Lisa.
Thank you.
He's got latest dated yours for.
Marcia, are you here on the animal control?
Yeah, go ahead and say if there were any questions. I just,
I'm happy to advance it if none of my colleagues object.
it's fine.
Okay. Okay, why don't I do that? Let's go to items 11 and 12 on your agenda. I don't have any hearings in between, so I can do that. And the animal control warrant and the annual renewal of the intermunicipal contract with Boxborough of Littleton for the animal control officer. Does the town administrator want to say a few introductory words on this? Or perhaps not?
Animal control.
It's been working.
It's working. It's a regional arrangement, Foxborough, Littleton, and Stowe, and it has been working extremely well.
Perhaps we could note the great job Phyllis is doing.
Great job.
Great job.
And also the credit, some of the credit has to go to the Stowe Police Department because they get some of the calls that come in, and they are able to help on this end sometimes and work with Phyllis. And, so it makes things go rather much more easily. And right now, springtime, very busy time. And Phyllis is able actually to do a lot of work with the citizens by phone. Sometimes it just takes time to give an explanation or something like that. And she's been doing a terrific job.
Okay, thank you.
And we're very pleased.
Good.
Our constituents are as pleased and satisfied with ACO services as they've ever been since I've been here.
Yeah.
We used to get some complaints from earlier services being provided, but
I've had a few interactions with
great
her.
professional,
She's very enthusiastic about what she does and very
Yeah.
committed. I'm sure my colleagues have figured out the warrant is our grant of, for lack of a better word, police power to her to do what she has to do. The agreement is our agreement with Foxborough and Littleton for sharing the expenses and the arrangement there. Any questions from my colleagues for either Bill or Marcia? Questions from the audience?
I was
Clerk.
just going to say that with the clerk's office using the City Hall Systems dog licensing program, Phyllis can now access remotely all of the dog information in the database as well, and the police department can too. So they don't have to get the hard copies and see all the stuff, so she can immediately pull up, you know,
She can do it remotely?
sort, yep, just from her
Her phone?
phone, and,
Wow.
because it's a web-based system. And the dog owners can now license online, and a number of them have been doing that, so. It's very helpful, because as soon as we usually print out a list, it's out of date. So now she can get it, and she sees what we see.
Mr. Burke?
Madam Town Clerk, do your office, need to input all the dog license informations received in hard copy from residents?
We do if they're not in the database already. If they go online and do the online program, they're entering all the data, but we do enter it for the new dogs. So, system is working.
No, I was just thinking
Yeah.
about the
It does.
demands on your office.
Yeah, we've already had 1,200 dogs already listed in there, so it's only a few of the, the 30 or 40 new ones that.
Any aliases out there?
Pardon?
Any aliases out there?
Yeah, probably,
And watch them.
All right.
Russians hack it too, I know.
probably.
All right,
If a
let's see if we
Russian
can
wolf
keep this,
hunts.
let's see if we can keep this
Would
moving.
you like a motion, Mr.
I would like a motion.
In accordance with Chapter 140, Section 151A of the Mass General Laws, I move to approve the annual animal control warrant dated May 22nd, 2018, and effective for 1 year from June 1st, 2018 through May 31st, 2019, and to authorize the chairman to sign it on behalf of the board.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to reauthorize the annual animal control warrant for the coming year and authorize the chairman to sign it. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions? That's it. Do we have another motion, Mr. Ryan?
I move that the selectmen approve and that the selectmen and town administrator sign the intermunicipal agreement with the town of Foxborough for animal control services for the period from July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, as presented by the Board of Health.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to renew the annual intermunicipal contract with Foxborough and Littleton for animal control services. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Marcia, could you tell Phyllis she's re-up for another year, and please convey our thanks to her for a job well done.
I will, and thank you very much for moving it ahead.
Thank you. Oh, well, I'm signing it, but it's not like you're gonna take it with you. so.
Unless you really like to.
It actually gets filed with me.
Okay, so
We've got the agreement.
back to items, item 7.
Never mind.
7? Item 7 on our agenda, we have a little signing to do, so let's hold on. Because I can't sign and talk at the same time. So now our annual appointments, part of them, of various inspectors, the building commissioner, and the forest warden. Any discussion and/or a motion? Hello.
I will give you a motion for the inspectors. On the recommendation of the building commissioner, Craig Martin, I move to reappoint the following inspectors for one-year terms ending May 31st, 2019. Assistant Facilities Manager / Local Inspector, Douglas Hyde. Electrical Inspector, Robert W. Norton. Deputy Electrical Inspector, Charles Weeks. Deputy Electrical Inspector, Michael A. Norton. Gas Inspector, Adam Solberg. Deputy Gas Inspector, Robert Smith. Plumbing Inspector, Adam Solberg, and Deputy Plumbing Inspector, Robert Smith.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to reappoint certain individuals as the facilities manager, local inspector, and various inspectors. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Do we have a further motion on the forest warden and the building commissioner?
Mr. Chair, I move to reappoint Fire Chief Joseph Landry to the position of forest warden for a one-year term ending May 31, 2019.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to reappoint Joe Landry as the forest warden. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? And do I have another one?
I move to reappoint Craig Martin to the position of building commissioner for a one-year term ending May 31st, 2019.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to reappoint Craig Martin as building commissioner for the coming year. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions? All right, so those reappointments are completed.
Could I just commend the effort of our building department, including all the inspectors and facility management? They do an exemplary job in important work, and they've been doing it for a long time without complaint for the most part.
I think Craig in particular is a pleasure to work with, and he has a tough job in a lot of ways.
It's true, they're all pleasant to work with for the most part.
All right, now something very interesting and exciting, a certificate for Girl Scout Silver Award for Mary Morales. We have a nomination letter from the Girl Scouts of Central and Western Massachusetts, marking Mary's achievement of getting the Silver Award, which is the highest achievement that a girl in grades 6 to 8 can earn in Girl Scouting. Do we have a certificate being prepared? Okay, terrific. Can I read it? And she is having
Ceremony, Worcester, June 4th.
ceremony in Worcester on June 1st. To get
June
this.
14th.
June 14th? What am I looking at? I'm looking at the next paragraph.
RSVP.
Yes. And we will discuss in a moment who can go there.
The note indicates it will be mailed at the request of the
Okay. Well, anyway, we are providing her with this official citation. Be it known that the Stow Board of Selectmen hereby extends its warmest congratulations to Mary Morales in recognition of her receiving the Girl Scout Silver Award in June 2018. And be it further known that the Stow Selectmen extend their best wishes for her future success. And do I have a motion to promulgate a citation
Yes,
in the form I just read?
shall. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve and sign a certificate and letter commending Girl Scout Mary Morales of Stow on achieving the Girl Scout Silver Award.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to commend Mary Morales and provide a certificate in the form cited. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And that is unanimous. We'll start down with anyone.
And Jim, if you have to sign this one too.
Oh,
One more sign.
okay. And now, another opportunity to honor someone who deserves it. A certificate for our retiring chair of the Veterans Graves Committee, Jeff Lance. And Maureen, do we have a certificate for him?
Jim, are we going to appoint somebody to go on June 14th?
I couldn't read the letter. Are we
It's
invited?
the letter requested that the letter be mailed. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
If a, well, we'll discuss offline.
As you wish.
Our longtime chair of the Veterans Graves Committee is retiring from that position. And will he be leading us this Monday, or, you know, last year was his last one?
Yeah, Martha Monroe was taken over, but she won't.
Is she the new chair?
Yeah.
Good.
Mhm.
Well, Jeff will be there, and at that ceremony, we will, I'd be happy to deliver this to the board.
Okay.
I think I have to be in court that day.
We'll be presenting him with this certificate, a proclamation in tribute to Jeff Lance. On this 22nd day of May 2018, the Stowe Board of Selectmen hereby expresses its sincere appreciation to Commander Jeff Lance, United States Navy retired, for 15 years of service as Chair of the Veterans Graves Committee. Jeff moved to Stowe 21 years ago and served for 30 years in the U.S. Naval Reserve, retiring in 2006 with the rank of Commander. As Chair of the Veterans Graves Committee, he has organized and led Stowe's Memorial Day Parade with the assistance of other committee members, all of whom are veterans of the armed forces. He has coordinated with Stowe students, Boy Scout and Girl Scout volunteers, and other Stowe organizations, as well as town departments and town and state officials, to make this annual parade a fitting observance and commemoration of those who have given so much in service to our nation. On behalf of the entire community, the Board of Selectmen wants to thank you for your loyal service to the town of Stowe and your enthusiasm in bringing diverse groups and multiple generations of families and residents together in honoring our town's veterans. Best wishes to you and your future endeavors. Do I have I just want to add, and I will mention this to Jeff on Monday, this is a tough job. It is a combination of different things, of solemnity, obviously, but also being welcome and accommodating to, as it says, the diverse groups. He has done it very, very well and has really set the standard. So, do I have a motion?
You have a motion. I move to approve and sign a certificate of appreciation for Jeff Lance after 15 years of service on the Veterans Graves Committee.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to issue a proclamation in tribute to Jeff Lance. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And that is unanimous. We'll be signing an actual certificate.
Yeah,
also.
we're actually out of them right now, so
Yes.
I'll have everybody come. Everyone going to do it that day, or if you can come in before, we'll have it ready.
I'm surprised we're out. They're so rare. They're like inverted jennies.
I don't know what that is either.
That's a rare stamp.
Oh.
If you were a nerd like me, you would know.
Okay.
All right.
I knew it, I wasn't, I'm not a nerd like you.
I look, no one is, Mr. Berger. No one is. I look forward to Monday. And now, an interesting item, the acceptance of a gift from from the estate of Aune Saari. And my understanding, Maureen, you can correct me, is that Ms. Saari's estate left us $500 for the planting of trees. Is that correct? Ms. Saari, who I did not have the pleasure of knowing, apparently was a lifelong resident of Stowe. One of the many Finns in Stowe. We all know what that means. I always think of John Mackey when somebody says that. She worked for the Polson family of Stowe at Paul's Food Shop in Maynard for many years. She was an avid birder and a lover of flowering trees, and she's made a very appropriate offer of $500 to the town for the planting of trees. Tree Warden Bruce Fletcher says that it can be put to good use. And with that in mind, and with our gratitude, we'll accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the selectmen accept a gift of $500 designated for the planting of trees from the estate of Aune Saari to the town of Stowe, and to authorize the chair to sign the order of assent and waive the notice provided by Ethel Morgan and O'Connor or town administrator. How's that? Chair or the town administrator.
Fine. Thank you.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the generous gift from the estate of Aune Saari of $500 for the planting of trees, and to sign the relevant documents, to authorize the chair or the town administrator to sign the relevant documents. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, and that is unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Saari. And we have taken care of that item. Maureen, if there's something else I need to do on this, let me know, but I don't think there is. So our last, well, you know, we'll go to the town administrator's report. Looks like a kid I just offered candy to. So perhaps he can get on the road a little earlier. Mr. Wrigley, do you have a report?
I do, sir. In a much more compliant tone, I would just want to apprise the board of the process going forward with respect to the ongoing MCAD case that I briefly surmised for you at a previous meeting. So at this point, with all the testimony having been taken and recorded, the process allows for both parties to submit a brief to the hearing officer by, what did I say, June 15th?
14th.
14th. Once received, the hearing officer reviews it and then prepares and issues a decision/findings to the full commission. My understanding of this from our counsel is that there's no preset time limit on delivery of same, but upon the delivery, then all the parties are informed of that decision, and appeals are available to each party, to the full commission, because this was heard by a single commissioner, and the next level is basically an appeal level to the full commission. So not knowing when that would occur, and when she'll issue her decision, we simply wait at this point. Obviously, the briefs will go in on time, and then we'll just wait until we hear from MCAD. I'm confident, cautiously confident of our position, and have been from the beginning, and I believe council feels the same now that the testimony's been taken. And more importantly, the insurer, who had a claim agent sitting in on all of this, feels equally as confident of our position. That we're no longer insured by that group, and we moved on to someone else. But so that everybody's not feeling abandoned, the second case was filed with the current insurer that we had before. So that will transpire long past my departure, but I wish you all good luck. Don't call me, and my price will be too high as a civilian to come back and testify. That's what I want to say.
That's what subpoenas are for.
Yes. It's not expert
Well,
testimony.
they have to be able to serve them. The second item was with respect to the ACO, which we discussed. The service agreement we have with Foxborough is running well. Few or no complaints. Our Board of Health, Foxborough, Phyllis is the key here. Phyllis is a great professional and great person, and her level of due diligence is unmatched, at least in my experience with what we'd had before, so that's good news for us. Just wanted to fill you on a few activities from last week that I had. One was that myself and my two counterparts from Bolton and Lancaster have been meeting periodically with the superintendent in the Sherwood Regional School District, and on an as-needed basis, but the invite is about once a month. I think it's worked extremely well, in part because we have as I've explained before, willing partners at the school committee and the supporting administration that I haven't seen again in my tenure. When they ask you what you'd like to see them hit for a target, they actually mean it, and they've come close to hitting, and it's difficult with three different communities. Obviously, we're all in different positions financially and fiscally, but they've worked very hard at getting very close, and that's 2 years in a row. I'm hopeful that continues, and we were discussing post-town meeting the circumstances going into, as you know, all three towns approved the budget for them next year. Looking forward to next year, we already began this what-if discussion So I thought that was helpful. Equally as important, had a brief discussion about the, what will be a pending submission to MSBA for a high school renovation, expansion, replacement project. And so we just basically chatted in general, but not certain what comes from that, but it doesn't sound to me as though there's any preset or folks on the school committee predisposed for describing the scope of the project on the needs. I think early on I was concerned about a default to a new school, but I don't know that that's where they are. And so that was encouraging. We'll see what happens with that. But it will be a major project in any event, and don't know, obviously we're a couple of years away from getting approval, going through design and all the rest, so.
Yes, Chucks.
Of course, that also conveniently would be subject to subpoena if we wanted to talk to you further about that.
I'll leave a forwarding address.
Canberra.
They have to be in hand.
My
Just don't lawyer up with Brian, that's all I'm asking.
My understanding, perhaps subject to correction, is the statement of interest just says, we want you to take a look at this, and then you pretty much have thrown the dart and you can't change the trajectory. That when I was on the Space Needs Task Force, there were some statistics on other regional submissions, and there was, I think the number 15 came to mind over whatever time period they had looked back. And without specifying much as we do, will have done now, by now, the SOI, triggers a process by which they come up with the recommendations as to whether or not you need renovations or a new school. It isn't so much, yes, MSBA, it's really not up to the school committee. I mean, obviously, they're gonna have to support whatever it is. But if the MSBA takes a look at that and for various constraints and everything else says, no, if you want our support, it's gonna be a new school. It's out of our hands, that's.
I agree technically with that, but my experiences with the MSBA, if the school committee strongly advocates, so they have per pupil square foot requirements, they have other standards to meet, but they have a space use need. So they're gonna explain the fact that they've got space needs. Then the question is how best to satisfy them. It doesn't default necessarily to a new school, but it is also true that MSBA never shies away from that. But I wouldn't necessarily be worried that it would be unilaterally the MSBA arguing for A if the school committee and those locally were arguing for B, that's all I'm saying. So there'll be some negotiations.
Tom.
Yeah,
But you have to advocate for them. You know,
Right.
if the school committee's saying, well, yeah, shucks, we'll take a new school, then
Yeah.
you're right, you might could get that.
you know, back years ago when we were looking at Center, one of the things that the MSBA did say is they did give preference to renovations when it was warranted. And, you know, as you know, we did an ad reno at Center, and part of it is, you know, the town wanted to keep Center to a certain point. It was pretty much gutted, but some parts of it were renovated and parts of it were added on. And unless they've changed the regulations significantly, they did give you basically bonus points for not just abandoning a perfectly good building.
And part of that changed because they changed their guidelines, if you recall it, about, it was within a year after, was it the Newton School that had the Olympic swimming pool and the Italian granite and $200 million? All of a sudden, MSBA decided that they would, so there was political influence and pressure brought to bear on MSBA to say, look, cost benefit should be more of your, because up till that point, MSBA was easily sold on the new school and with it the new prices. So I think they've refocused and reoriented their program, and the money's not where it once was either. I mean, so there were a lot of pressures that were brought to bear on MSBA, and I think they're just more cost benefit focused than they were before. So I wouldn't preclude any outcome. And it sounds as though the school is willing to take a neutral look on how to satisfy their space constraints.
There's some good news compared to prior years. I remember 2012 or so when there was a proposal to expand the science labs. A statement of interest was filed with the MSBA. We didn't even know about it. And then it was approved by MSBA in January. That's when we found out about it, I think after that. And we were told there was a short window for the town to approve its share in order to get the MSBA grant. But this time, we know when they filed the statement of interest. So at least, the same thing might happen. We might get a short window of notice, but at least we know what they're doing.
And in fact, they put off the filing. I mean, it was a year ago that
Right.
they
That's
could have
true.
done it. And
Right.
again, the municipal folks from the three towns were saying, geez, how about we take a look? And the committee that you served on, I think, so they're listening now and actually acting based on what they're hearing. And we're in a position where the conditions are different than they've been, a decade or two ago.
So let's count ourselves lucky for that. Any further discussion on the town administrator's report?
Oh,
Did you have anything else?
He's got a couple more.
I'm sorry.
The other thing I wanted to tell you is that a week ago today, we met down at Gleasondale at the invite of Representative Kate Hogan, who had Jay Ash, the Secretary of the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development.
Yeah.
EOEE something. The agency and secretary that was here just giving us a check to get the Lower Village funded and other things, pretty active. Again, seemed to be focused on some of the suburbs and smaller communities and just all the money going there. So he was here for other purposes, not in Stow, but in the area, and Kate was able to persuade him to stop at Gleasondale. I was down there, Jesse was there, the owners were there, and he was able to put some eyes on the mill and the tight site, but also, we took the opportunity to share with him our longer-term hopes, expectations. Maybe it's hope over expectation, I don't know. It's a tight site. I did a lot of community development in the prior life, and I had some tight sites. This one, you're gonna have to off-site the water and sewer. But that disadvantage is, I think, negated by the fact that we own the Kane property, which is very nearby, and if we were to agree on some terms and conditions to provide some part of the Kane property so that they could site a well and a septic, then you could drag the lines, and the site itself, as tight as it is, then because you'd never site a well or a septic, and couldn't under the regs today on that site or anything on that side, But also, I think what this would require for the state agreeing for economic development purpose to put in is that, right now there's a number of smaller outfits with a few individuals there, and so I think to make it worth their while, a long-term mixed use of the building, which might project larger employee base, right, and others, and get some local investment. This is a perfect project from my perspective, and having served on a chamber and EDIC in the past. Our EDIC, this would be the type of thing, and I don't know if they're in a position with experience to do that or not, to start outreach and marketing, trying to find bank investors and others, but that's where you would start this. And so it might be something that I mentioned it to Jesse, at least they can begin thinking about it. But this would be perfect, because it's gonna take some heavy lifting, it's gonna take some financial muscle, but these projects are doable. And then you get a commitment from the financing end of it, and maybe some prospective buyers for mixed use. And I mistakenly called a banquet hotel a bouquet hotel, but I did not say it down there. Just want you to know that. I had never heard the term before. And I said,
I haven't either.
I'm not even sure what the
It's a
hell.
very
I don't know
pleasant
any
term.
of the technical terms today. What used to be strictly engineering terms now are dressed up into other things. I don't know what a banquet hotel is, but it sounds good. And
Banquet or boutique?
that's what I said.
That's what you meant, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Right. The last piece is, had a meeting with Tim Reed, library trustee, last week. We met on the current library project, the restoration. I think, Jim, you call it a restoration, is that what it is? Restoration?
The big building?
No, what you're doing now, is that restoration?
Yeah, that's restoration.
Okay. So, given where you are now, obviously, the trustees are interested in the next phase. And Tim and I just talked a bit. Actually, I was glad to see Tim back in the saddle there, because that institutional memory goes back to 2012, when that original library building committee with the other building committees that we had organized, in the existing facility report and all of the pre-design work that Roberts and the prior architectural firm provided, can be beneficial, at least to set a baseline to have discussions, preliminary estimates, if you're gonna do an ad reno, just a number of things with it. And we just chatted about the next step. It sounds as though they're hopeful to come to the annual town meeting next May with a request for design funds. That's basically where I think they are, when they can finish up this work and then have some discussions about next steps. But we've known that for a long time. They were gracious enough the last go-around, when we went forward with the two of the three projects, that they would wait, do something smaller, which they're doing. That's nearing completion. And so it's part of the plan. And it's unique in a way that financially, because it's eligible, at least the historic part of the library is eligible for CPC funding and has been receiving it, you know, you don't have as much a burden fiscally as you would for something that doesn't have that benefit. So, just update.
I recently walked through the historic part to see what they're doing. I don't know if you've had a chance to get over.
I haven't got in there yet.
I like it. I mean, I just like the paint scheme. It looks, I mean, obviously it looks new, but also a little old. It looks, I don't think anybody knows for sure that those are the colors back in the early 1900s, because you can only do so much with the black and white photos.
Right.
And there aren't that many of them. But it looks nice.
Others have said the same thing.
And the floors, the original floors are in great shape, which was a big plus. And it could be a really, really nice space. They're gonna redo, with the new money they just got from town meeting, as Sharon mentioned, they're gonna redo, the chimney's already been done, but the hearth, and clean it out. The fireplace will not be working, you don't want that. But it should look really nice.
Well, so far, so good then.
Yeah.
So, and I think if the constituents see that part of it complete, and they're pleased and impressed by it, it makes it easier to go that last step with it. And again, as I said, having some pre-existing money
Right.
would be helpful.
All right, anything
That
else?
is it.
That is it? If no one has any objections, we can release the town administrator from his burdens and be on the way to the friendly town.
Not
Charlie
burden to be
said.
with us, is it?
Jim, I didn't say that.
Before I get a call.
Take the yoke off. Next item on our agenda has to do with, next two items have to do with liaison stuff. One is the liaison reports. Before we get to that, we want to have a very brief discussion about the role of the selectmen's liaison. This can benefit from periodic revisiting. Ms. Hageman, I think you asked, we put this on the agenda. Do you want to start us off?
Sure, there's a number of commissions and committees and organizations that we are liaisons to. And our current practice, as I understand it, is that we are volunteer or appointed to be the liaisons, and then the intent is that we attend meetings and participate in that manner. I'm wondering if that can be revisited, because I'm personally unable to go to 3 or 4 night meetings a week. And I'm wondering, and I know as a result that, for example, the rec commission has not been paid attention by me. So I'm wondering if we can look at a different model that might include meeting with the chair or meeting with the staff people, if there are staff people, getting periodic updates that we can then report back, as opposed to attending. So that's the reason I put it on.
Comments?
I'll just comment that in my time on the board, I think it's been pretty individualized how we have handled our, we might maybe not have 5 different versions of how we do it, but might be 3.5 or hybrid. When I was liaison to Zoning Board of Appeals, I think I went to, shame on me, maybe 1 or 2 meetings in 3 or 4 years.
Well, that's the point. You said shame on you. Why did you say that?
Well, because, all right, I probably should have done something different, which contributes to this discussion.
Yeah.
But I think that as long as there is an avenue of communication, if the chairman of whatever committee it is knows, okay, Dawn or Tom is the liaison, I never felt it, and it was never explained to me, and what, the class that I had, maybe you didn't get, you skipped that class, is Selectmen 101, 6 years ago now, just about now, was that it's up to you to be our contact to them, either if you know of you hearing of something from somebody in town or the town administrator, and you want to follow up on that and apprise the board. But there was never any expectation that I assumed, and certainly acted upon that lack of assumption, that there was imperative that I attend all of the meetings. Several of the boards that were very active, I was liaison to Concom. I did quite a lot with them because of a lot of stuff going on there. Planning board, but it varies as time goes on. I don't think this. I'm not saying you're wrong in suggesting this. I'm glad we're having a discussion, but I don't think there is a particular model that we need to adopt. I'll just leave it there.
Mr. Burke, you want to make any comments?
I thought Mr. Ryan had a point, but I'll be.
Oh, Mr. Ryan.
Basically, I'd echo pretty much what Don has said. I don't have the bandwidth to go to meetings all the time, and for the most part, you know, there've been some that I touch base with here and there. I check out some minutes occasionally, but I don't go to all the meetings. And at the same time, every now and then, some stuff does come up, you know, like when we're on, I think where you're on SMOT, that is a full membership, so that's something slightly different. But, you know, when we've been on some of the building committees, yep, you know, those are regular requirements, you know, so that we can meet quorums. I've had, you know, various meetings when we end up going, you know, interviewing police or something like that, or when we hired the fire chief a few years ago, that was a marathon of meetings. But, you know, and then, you know, can kind of let it slide off. And I think about it occasionally that, yeah, maybe I should, you know, show a little more love to some of my liaison assignments, but at the same time, you know, we're also volunteers that can't do everything all the time, so it's, I don't go to that many meetings.
Mr. Burke.
I don't think it's so much necessary to revisit the model, because I don't think there is a model. As Mr. Salvi is quick to point out, not everyone has a motivation to get out of the house every night like I do. Many of you have more welcoming families or time commitments. I certainly wouldn't feel badly if I couldn't attend all the liaison appointment, all the meetings in which I had a liaison appointment. As Mr. Ryan just pointed out, there's a couple of committees, like, as you well know, that require you there just to hit a quorum. So those you have to attend. Others, I agree, you can call up the chair and say, is there anything going on? Do you need any input? Do you want to give me any input? And I think that's most of Mr. Ryan's modus operandi with his public safety liaison commitments. They'll reach out to him, or he can reach out to them when it's necessary. And finally, there are some committees, especially the ones that are staffed with volunteers, where I really do like to attend because I think the members there feel involved and feel that they're being paid attention to. Thank you very much, Mrs. Saari. That's a much better phrase that I was going to come up with. For lack of a better word, they just show them a little love. I mean, Council on Aging, I think they like it when I show up there and make a couple of jokes, then leave.
That's not what I've heard, but.
You may very well be right, Mr. Ryan. But so I wouldn't feel badly about not adhering or following a traditional model, because I don't think, as Mr. Hawks pointed out, there is a traditional model.
Well, then, thank you, and I have been educated.
Yeah, there's a surprising consensus. I mean, as long as we're all clear, when you're on a committee, you're on a committee. You gotta show up for the quorum, you gotta do the work. But other than that, you play it by year. I have one committee, when I go to their meetings, I almost think it's counterproductive, because they wind up asking me questions that the department head should be asking Bill. They ask me procurement questions, and they complain, they make comments about that really they should be going to Craig, and they seem to think that saying it to me is enough, and it isn't enough. They gotta do the actual work. And then there's another committee that I could go to their meetings all the time. It's so inefficient, though. I have coffee with their chair, and we cut right to the chase. What's going on?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So speaking of liaison stuff, let's start with Mr. Burke.
Well, with town meeting, there haven't been a lot of liaison requirements made, but LACAC met. That is a committee where I am a voting member. I think I have to re-up on that if the chair sees in his wisdom to reappoint me. Essentially, they're proceeding on with the transfer of management to the new executive director, Jonathan Daisy.
Mr. Hawks.
Preface the same remarks Mr. Burke made about not having, we're all just kind of taking our second deep breath now that the town meeting and election, the hard-fought election that a couple of us had to put on took a lot out of us. And, but I will just point out that the Lakewood Commission is meeting in this very spot tomorrow night. That's it.
That's right.
I'm good.
Ingeborg.
Well, I think you know the Conservation Commission and the SMOT have been very busy to witness what we did tonight, and the Rec Commission, I will reach out to them and see what's up, because they have been ignored by me.
CPC held its annual hearing on its plan last night. There was one attendee, but no real substantive comments, so I think they're all set. But obviously, they take it a little slow in the summer. And that's about all I had. Before we adjourn, I do want to do something I was remiss at not doing earlier. It was just to thank the former chair, Mr. Burke, for his, let's say, steady hand of leadership over the past year, and his eloquent guidance. And thank you very much for being an excellent chair.
I see that you're just one meeting, you've shown superior abilities and talents to me.
This is true, but
the person who deserves the person who deserves credit is our former clerk.
Okay. All right.
For keeping you on track?
No.
Exactly.
Brian,
Being a
thank
great
you.
backstop.
Brian,
Thank you,
Thank
though.
you, and I'm sorry that I didn't say, I thought I did at the reorg meeting, but I don't know whether I did or not, but thank you. Any further business?
Motion to adjourn.
I do have our schedules,
Oh,
because I think vacations are coming up and all that kind of
Oh.
stuff, and so do we need to discuss that at all?
so excellent point. Couple of things. Vacation schedules, maybe you could send emails with any planned vacations to the
Okay.
office, maybe a CC to me, just so I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I've already told you about my mega vacation. And also, while we're talking about liaison topics, Maureen, maybe you could get us a list for our next meeting, and we'll put
Sure.
on the agenda just to revisit liaison. I plan on maybe giving up one thing,
Mhm.
maybe giving you back CPC, maybe, if you want it.
Gratitude has a short life.
Everybody else, just, take a look at it if you wanna make any adjustments.
Okay.
I don't feel much of a need to make huge changes.
I, of course, will defer to the chair
Well-
in these matters.
We'll see, I enjoy it, but it's a matter of, it's one of those finding the time to do it right kind of things.
So I think we had a motion that was cut short rudely by.
We
I
did.
will
Yes.
restate it, motion to adjourn.
Is that non-debatable?
Motion been made and seconded, non-debatable, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great
Wasn't
clerking.
It wasn't seconded.
Great
so-
It was
clerking.
seconded.
Great
Good
clerking.
job.
Maureen, that June 14th